What's up, Thrashers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram, and of course our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today we've got thrash metal royalty on the show. We've got Max Cavalera from Sepultura fame. And wow, what an honor. He was able to spend about 30 minutes with us, gave us the lowdown on an upcoming tour that he's doing that includes his brother Igor on drums. There's a couple new guys rounding out the band. He's got Dan Gonzalez from Possessed and Mike Leone from Soulfly. And they're going out to celebrate and revisit the classic Beneath the Remains album and the Arise album. And we're going to get Max to tell us a little bit about why they focused on those two albums and what you can expect when you see them on this tour. We also got to dig into some of his past and kind of got to visit with him a little bit. He was at home in Arizona, and he was telling us about how much he enjoys the weather and some of his stomping grounds. And so we got to talk a little bit outside of the music box for a bit as well.
I feel like I feel like it's one of those I'm not worthy moments, you know, like, wow.
Yeah. Did we just have Max Cavalera on our show?
Had a living legend on the I mean, he could be looked at as a Lemmy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
A living legend of sorts, and really made his own way, and no one ever told him that, you know, like he tells a story, I won't blow it, but he tells a story that I thought was interesting about the haircut for the record. We'll leave it alone. It's like, people are going to see this intro here and go, what? Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, that was great.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, it was cool to just talk to the man and not just a guy in a metal band. You know,
right?
What a cool guy! I've always heard he's real sweet. We shared. I didn't bring it up, but we shared a travel agent. The Toys had the travel agent. Her name was Judy. She's passed on now, but and when their first tours, this would have been in the '80s, of course. Their Sepultura, I'm talking about their early tours. She was their travel agent. She would book them their hotels and plane flights for their management and stuff. And so she was meeting them all the time. They were coming by and dropping off and picking up, you know.
Yeah.
So very interesting guy. I love his explanation of those songs and how they were, you know, written, whether it was early lyrics in Portuguese, translating old, and the way that he learned English was translating his favorite heavy metals, his favorite Iron Maiden songs, you know, is how we learned how to speak English, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, we got a lot of nice little sideline stories out of him, even though our time was short. He was super sweet, as you said, and I really enjoyed some of the sideline stuff besides the obvious stuff that we were going to talk about today. This episode will go out about 2 days in advance of that tour. The tour goes May through June across North America. So by the time you're hearing this, they'll be on their way to a neighborhood near you. And man, if you're a thrash metal head and you owe it to yourself to go check this out and to, because come on, let's face it, who doesn't love Beneath the Remains and the Arise records? They're landmark albums, every bit as important as anything Metallica or Slayer did, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was headed during the interview. I was trying to say it's, you know, I've already said it. He's part of that whole movement of, you know, he created something in the same way that he talks about his guitars. Well, I'll save it, but he's not your normal guitar player. He's not your normal heavy metal songwriter. He's not, you know, against all odds, kind of had to figure it out on his own and fell in love with something and was damned if someone was going to hold him back. So continues to be a rising star in my eyes.
We are honored to have him, Max Cavalera, today on the Talk Louder podcast.
He can probably hear us. Here he comes.
All right.
There he is.
Nice shirt.
Hello.
Winning
All right.
out of the three of us might be winning on the T-shirt contest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
How are you, Max?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Excellent.
Doing great, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Of course, my pleasure, man.
Let's get this out of the way. This is Dave that you've been talking to. It's his birthday today, so this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
As we say in Brazil, Feliz aniversario means happy birthday.
Awesome.
Hey, how often do you get a happy birthday in Portuguese?
There you go.
That's wonderful.
What I want to hear is Dave say it back exactly the way Max is.
Ain't gonna happen.
Can't be done. Can't be done.
I am not gonna butcher this man's native language. No, sir.
Oh shit.
Takes practice.
I have butchered many languages, especially live. Maybe I even hold the record of butchering languages, especially when you go, far Eastern Europe. Oh man, it's like they write it down for me what you say. I say it, the whole crowd is looking at me like, okay, what was that now? What was that again? And you feel just really stupid. Like, let's just rock.
Yes.
What about let's just rock, man?
Yeah, well, that isn't rock the language that we all need anyway.
The universal language. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
exactly.
let me ask you this. Speaking of language and rock, when you were first writing songs, were you writing in Portuguese or English?
The very beginning Portuguese, in fact, our first demo recordings were all Portuguese.
Wow.
And then I had a friend that translated letters because I used to write to people like Chuck from Def I would write it in Portuguese and he would translate it to English. But at the same time, I was translating a lot of records. That was kind of like how I learned English. I learned like a little bit in school in Brazil. There's a lot of schools that teach English, so all the basic stuff. But mostly of my real teachers were Black Sabbath and Motorhead and Maiden, just translating, hours of whatever. I want to know what they're singing about. I need to know. I need to know what Iron Man is about. I need to know what Power Slave is about. So
yes.
I would spend hours translating those records, and that was cool. That was a great way to learn
Of course,
English.
God, it just sounds cool you telling the story because a lot of if English is your first language, you take for granted, and then you hear a story someone like you growing up and when hey, I love this music, but what the fuck? I need to know, and it's rock music is teaching you something vital and that's going to be useful for the rest of your life. I think that's fantastic. How it was giving back to you immediately, without even inadvertently. So it's great.
And many good things came out of it. I mean, the name Sepultura come from Motorhead, from Another Perfect Day record. There's a track called Dancing on Your Grave.
Yes, I love that.
And I love it too. Like it's one of my it's such an obscure Motorhead record. Nobody talks about it, but it's so fucking good. But Grave, it's Sepultura, and we just took that word. But what we did was, okay, we have the name in Portuguese, but let's sing in English because our heroes sing in English. Everybody that we like sings in English. So we have to sing it. And I remember being very, very criticized in Brazil. A lot of even friends of ours were like, "What the fuck? Why are you guys singing in English? That's bullshit. You have to sing it in Portuguese," being a little bit like nationalistic,
Yeah.
like that kind of Brazilian pride, It was like, no, you don't understand. I have plans.
I'll say, well, you know what? It translated is the perfect word. It translated because worldwide English-speaking fans love what you and your brother and early Sepultura created. So it's amazing. I remember your early demos. I don't recall them being in Portuguese, but your early demos in the tape trading scene worldwide were very sought after demos. And I believe I had one of them. I don't have it anymore, unfortunately. But anyway,
I remember one of the cool things was actually like the accent. It's some of the old stuff. There's a heavy accent, and some of the words I'm pronouncing them wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing an interview with Dave Grohl, and he talks about that. He goes, "That's what attracted me mostly about Sepultura. It was like dangerous because they had that accent, and they're not from here; they're from some other place."
Yeah. See, I find that attractive as well. That you would have. I mean, even when like bands from the UK or where they have a really harsh English accent, I believe that influences singers worldwide. They want to sing with that, open mouth, that wide vowel shape, which translates again very well for vocals, because the bigger the mouth, the louder, the more, it's just bigger and more emotional of a thing happening when you have the ah and the eh and the ah,
Yeah.
in every way.
I used to have a lot of hours of sometimes discussions with producers, because some producers would be very picky about how I'm saying certain words. And to some of them, I gave up and sang the way the guy wanted me to sing. And to some of them, I say, no, man, I'm just going to do it this way. This is how I am. This is how it sounds like. It is what it is. It's a unique thing. The only time we actually changed was actually a demo, and it was for a record, Schizophrenia. It was the first song is actually called "From the Past Comes the Storms," but my first name was "The Past Reborns the Storms," which is really wrong English.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pointed out to us by our friend, that's wrong English. You gotta change that when you make the real record, Yeah. So I think the demo version is actually "The Past Reborns the Storms."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
I feel like
the
I
album
feel like
has the real.
I feel like early German bands, like even Scorpions,
They had that.
And loudness as well. I think that they would put their words in the slightly
different
wrong
order.
And you know what it created? It created this really cool, like you knew they were from somewhere else. It goes back to the Dave Grohl thing. He's like, you can tell that there's something odd about this, but that's what makes me like it and want to hear it again and again. So it's a beautiful accident, I think. Anyway, fantastic to have you on here. I'm glad that things are going well. You've been living in America for a long time now.
Oh yeah.
Arizona?
30 plus years. Yeah, we live in Phoenix.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cool, man. It's like it's a quiet place, especially after touring. You know how tour goes, meeting people every day, and it's chaotic and nuts. And when you come home, it's nice to go to a place that's actually calm and quiet. We actually have another house that's actually in the desert. It's like surrounded by mountains and cactus and rattlesnakes and mountain lions and all that.
I love it.
Yeah.
All the wild shit. It was. It's eventually one day I like to turn that into a studio. It's really, really similar looking to the Rancho de la Luna, which is in Death Valley. I saw a couple of documentaries on this studio. I think it's like near Palm Springs or something.
Okay.
But it's the same vibe. You got the whole desert, mountains around, and so it will look like a really cool place to put a studio on.
Yeah.
I just don't have the I hopefully get the time to do it, man. It's always touring, always making records. But eventually, at some point, maybe it'd be cool to do something like that later in the future. But I like Phoenix. I like it here. If you get used to the summer, the heat is pretty fucking harsh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we live in Texas, so we're used to the heat.
Know a little bit about that.
So-
The heat there is a dry heat, and
Yeah.
Dry heat.
we have humidity down here. It's a little bit of a different animal.
Yeah. So you guys are probably more similar to Brazil. Brazil is very humid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I remember when I first moved to Arizona, my mom called me. And she's like, "So how is it?" I go, "Yeah, I think it's like Mars here. It's really hot, and there's no people on the street. Everybody's inside their car with air conditioning or
Right.
inside their house. Like, not many people walk. And I remember I like to walk, so
Yeah.
I will walk to the Circle K. To get a drink, and cars will stop and be, hey, buddy, do you need a ride? You know?
Yeah,
And
we're-
I go, no, I'm walking because I want to. It's 110 degrees, you might die. You know?
They're concerned for your well-being.
Yeah.
They were, man.
Yeah.
But I just always in Brazil, I always walked. I love to walk. I still do that on tour. Like sometimes I get to the venue, there's nothing to do, just go cruise around, go walk around. See all the surrounding areas. It's fun, you know.
Good for you.
But yeah, it's Phoenix is a cool town, man. A lot of rockers here. You got Alice Cooper.
Rob Halford there still?
Yeah, I don't know if he's still here, but
Yeah.
I've seen Rob around. I seen Cooper a couple times in benefit shows. Some of the stuff he does. There's actually he owns a church not too far from my house that he does like programs with the kids and stuff, and that's really cool.
Yeah, he gives away food and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking of touring, we got a lot to cover in a short time to do it. So, Max, I wanted to get to the subject of your upcoming tour. You're going to be out in May and June with your brother Igor. You got Dan Gonzalez on guitar, Mike Leone on bass, and you're out focusing on the Beneath the Remains record and the Arise record. So, number one, tell me why those two records specifically, because a lot of your fans would argue that Chaos AD and Roots are also landmark albums of yours. So why the emphasis on those particular two albums, and are you playing them in their entirety, or are you just selecting cuts from both of those records?
Yeah, so this idea of playing the classic Sepultura records were actually born a couple of years ago when we did the Roots. We started with Roots, and it was a success right away. People love it. They really, really connect to it. We loved it because we wrote that stuff years ago, and we get to really go back and relearn them and play them again with Igor. It's so much fun. But there's no order, really. It's really kind of wild, random. It's total random. Right now, it's Beneath the Remains and Arise. And that's actually Igor's idea to do them together, because we think just out of the whole Sepultura stuff that I'm on it, those two records are really the only ones that are really similar to each other. Chaos is it's a different animal, and Roots is a different animal.
Totally.
The early stuff is more black metal.
Mm-hmm.
So these two are very unique. It was a time where it was very, very exciting to mix death metal and thrash metal and hardcore. So we almost felt like we're mad scientists in a laboratory, just putting a little bit of death metal, a little bit of thrash metal, some pinches of hardcore punk, and just put it in a blender and press play and see what happens. And the result was so exciting, man. Those records they're oozing with energy, So we decided to do them together. So it's more of a powerhouse show. So it's a very, very brutal show. We only leaving, I think, 2 tracks out right now, which is, I believe, Meaningless Movements and Hungry. And I always look at those songs as kind of fillers. And I don't even like the title of the song "Hungry" because it makes me think of McDonald's or Burger King or something. Like, it's a horrible song title. I didn't name it, by the way. So it was kind of like a filler. They're all right, but there's so much other great stuff on those records that we just kind of just grabbed like the best stuff that we think makes this records exciting to play. So, and then we're gonna add a couple other things, maybe a couple cover songs in the end and stuff like that. Maybe even some Celtic Frost or something.
Nice.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Those some really great players. Mike is a great bass player. Daniel is a fantastic guitar player.
How did you get Daniel involved? Because he's currently in Possessed, is that right?
Right, yeah.
And I think a lot of people would be interested in knowing. So Mike is from Soulfly, and you got Dan from Possessed. Now the Soulfly connection is obvious, but how did you pick up Dan on guitar from Possessed?
So we met Dan a couple of years ago when Soulfly played San Diego, and his other band, Gruesome, was on the bill. And so we met and we talked, and I was like, this I watched the show and like, wow, this is a really cool guitar player, you know. And then we play again years later with Possessed in Europe, and that was after they released the comeback record, Revelations of Oblivion, which is an amazing record. And I always thought if we had the chance, I think Daniel, I told that to my brother, say, if we get the chance, I think Daniel would be perfect to play those, that era, that Beneath the Remains, Arise era, because he's just that perfect guitar player for that.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Froze.
He's it's just an amazing guitar player, you know, to be very and it was cool. Like the minute we call him, he was on board. Like,
oh yeah,
instant. Like, hell yeah, I'm doing this. Is killer. I grew up with these records. Like,
right.
Like there's nothing but pride to play these records, and so it's gonna be fun.
It's beautiful.
It is going to be fun. I mean, those two records were the ones that put you on the map here in America, and so it makes sense that you'd play them as sort of a 1-2 punch, as you say. And I think there's a lot of people always argue about the Big Four, if it was expanded into the Big Five, and they throw in bands like Exodus and Testament, and sometimes you hear Pantera. And I won't argue with any of those bands, but I will say that Beneath the Remains and Arise, those two records alone, to me, make Sepultura a contender if there was ever an expansion to the Big Five. Oh. So, yeah, I mean, those are great records.
Thank you, man. We appreciate that. Those are very important records. I mean, I remember when we released Arise, and we did a video for Orgasmatron in Brazil, and it won Best MTV Video Clip of the Year. So they flew us to LA for the party, and we were invited to the MTV party, and we met James Hetfield at the party. And I remember talking to James, and James, he goes, "Yeah, I love your video for Dead Embryonic Cells," and I just like fucking froze. It's like I don't even know if he knew that we existed. Not just he knows that we exist, he likes our fucking video. Are you fucking kidding me? It was like a validation, man. Like, yes, fucking coming from James meant a lot, man. And I was like, so that was like super excited to hear that. Because I always always loved Metallica. I mean, I cut my hair for Ride the Lightning back when I lived in Brazil. I had a cousin that was like trying to get me to go normal. It's like, well, if you cut your hair and it has to be a buzz cut, military buzz cut, I'll buy you a copy of any record you want. And I had my eye on Ride the Lightning. And I was like, yeah, the hair will grow back again. I can deal with the buzz cut.
That's a great story.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome.
So I cut my hair for Ride the Lightning, and it's like, it's worth it. It was worth it every single second of it.
So another thing I wanted to ask you, you're known for playing a 4-string guitar. You take 2 strings off your guitar and you play with 4 strings. When did that start, and how did that come about? It's become your trademark.
Yeah, I have a couple of guitars. laying around with 6 strings, and sometimes I do some videos and people like they get thrown. Oh, whoa! There's 6 strings on that guitar. You're cheating. You're cheating, Max. It started back in the day, back in the Sepultura days. Was I never did solos. I was always a rhythm player, And I remember one of the little strings broke, and then the other one broke. And I look at my roadie. We didn't have much money at that time. And I said to him, I said, okay, we have a little bit of money. We can buy a new pack of strings and put 6 strings on the guitar, or we can buy booze and I'll keep jamming with 4 strings and we'll get drunk and we'll have the booze. And he goes, and it looks cooler with 4 strings. You don't use them anyway. Oh. So it was my roadie. It was actually his fault. He goes, let's get the booze. Looks cool with 4 strings. It's punk rock. You don't use them. And then I decided that's my thing. So actually, in a weird psychological way, it forced me to kind of like really impose on me. I have to like try to do a lot with only 4 strings. It's all about the rhythm, So
Right.
you become really rhythm oriented. And so I'm very much a riff guy, always been. I'm in awe of a great riff. Like when a great riff comes to you, I actually bow down, thank heavens, like thank you, Lord, thank you, God. I say, thank you for this riff.
Yes,
I don't deserve to have made this riff, but I think I'll take it. So it forces me to only have 4 strings to really try to come up with as much as I can with 4 strings. But it's actually funny because the ESP is my guitar company. They already they told me there were some kids here in America that they bought the guitar, and I guess the dad called the company like, you sold me a broken guitar. It's missing 2 strings. And they had to tell the guy, no, that's how you got a Max Cavalera guitar for your son, sir. That's how he plays. It's not defective. This is how he plays,
Let me ask this, because I don't know. I'm just being straight. Do they leave the B and the E, the little strings? Do they leave the tuners off the headstock too?
It's everything stays the same. So
it's only
stock,
four tuners on the headstock. They leave the other tuners off, or they leave
it in.
They leaving them on there. They just
leave
don't
it
put
on.
string. They
just don't put this. That's why the guy thought it was. They sold him a broken guitar. It was like
I love it.
You sold me a broken.
It's kind of interesting. I don't want to take up too much time, but it's very, very interesting when you think about how the riff is born. You're not writing those riffs, for what it is that we're kind of talking about on those little strings. You write it on those bottom 4.
Right.
You write them on those thick strings anyway.
That's where you get the chunk.
Yeah, whatever it is. Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I wrote some of it around Chaos AD on acoustic.
Oh, yeah.
I think the chorus of Territory was done acoustically. And I kind of found that to be kind of cool because when you write it in acoustic, when you put it with distortion, it becomes 10 times heavier, and it brings all the heaviness in focus, like sharpens the heaviness. I'm old school, man. I love the whole old fashioned way. Just sit with your guitar and let it rip, and the riff eventually is going to come out. The same with lyrics. That's why I write lyrics with a pen and paper, not computers. Some guys are, they go on a computer or their phones. I like to use the pen. Just like this pen is connected to the heavens. It's gonna come on this pen. The power of the pen.
Yes.
It's the old school way. It's like I don't know. It's might be stupid of me to think that, but
not at all.
I have a old
school.
Old habits die hard, they say, right?
Yes.
I think it's kind of a transcendent. It makes it you're touching the pen, You're touching the pen when you write. You know,
Yeah.
it's part of your body and your brain and your heart when you're letting stuff
and
out.
I feel when you do it digitally, electronically, it's not the same thing. It's not.
It doesn't feel the same. It feels like it's somebody else writing it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And the same with the as far as riff goes. I can spend hours just riffing, like nonstop riffing, man. It's like it's sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. My wife will come in the living room, and is like, you're gonna just pull an all-nighter? You and your guitar? I'll see you. I'll see you in the morning.
I didn't see you at dinner. You know, aren't you hungry?
Yeah. You're just there with your guitar, you know. Hours go by.
The dog misses you. I miss you. Fuck.
So Max, I've got so much I want to ask you, but I know we're running out of time. So I wanted to ask one last question before we have to let you go. And this is on behalf of all your fans. It's the obvious question. Is there ever any chance of a reunion of the classic Sepultura lineup?
I would never say no, but I don't really know where that stands as far as like I don't have any communication with those guys, and I think what we're doing right now is the closest the fan can get to those original moments and vibes, and I feel very, very proud and happy that we're able to do this. Part of me kind of like don't really even care much if we ever really do a reunion. It's kind of like, I don't know. There's a lot of baggage and drama that when it comes to the four of us. I know. So it's years of constant turmoil and shit that I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. But again, it can. More weird things had happened before, so I wouldn't cut it out. But at the moment, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Well, we'll take what we can get, and I know that I'm looking forward to seeing you in Texas in June. My son is 14 years old, and he's a huge Sepultura fan, and he's really excited about coming to see you. And I haven't seen or I haven't heard some of those songs played by you, and I remember seeing Sepultura on tour with Obituary and Sadist a long time ago.
SOS.
Yeah, I'm going to feel like I'm going back in a time machine, and I'm looking forward to that. So,
yeah, well, that's what's cool. You got guys like you that bring your kid to it, and you have experience, and you get to experience again. But then you get to see your son experience for the first time.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love there's a whole new generation that really digs those records, and they were not even born when those records came out.
Right.
It really trips me out, man. It's cool. It's like really, it's a little bit like, I remember when I first saw Sabbath, because all the golden years of Sabbath, the prime years, I was a kid. I was 7 years old. So I wouldn't be into Sabbath at that time. But I got to see Sabbath later when we opened for them with Sepultura. Mm-hmm. And I remember just crying on the side of the stage, just like in fucking awe, and I knew that I wasn't really seeing the prime, but I was, it was super special. It was fucking cool, man. Yeah. And even when you don't see the very much original, I think as long as you can get somehow some of the elements that were part of the original incarnation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the same. We just play a show with Phil and Selma and the Illegals, yeah. And they play a shitload of Pantera stuff, and mm-hmm. I was fucking so thrilled to see that, because I have toured with Pantera, and I remember it was nostalgic. It felt so good, yeah. And it was all different guys. So, it's not the same guys, but it doesn't matter, man. It's Phil's voice. It's fucking, he's got the voice. He's got the it's coming from the heart, that's I think what people get from these shows, and it's what they will get from this Beneath the Remains I Rise tour that we're giving to them. So it should be fucking awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
We're looking forward to it. You're definitely going to transport us, and those songs and those albums are classics that will live forever. So looking forward to hearing them and seeing them played live. I know you got to go. Max, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Like I said, we'll see you in June when the tour rolls through Texas. In the meantime, I'm Metal Dave Glessner on behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster and our very special guest, Max Cavalera, thrash metal legend himself, joining us today on the Talk Louder podcast.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.